Breaking today, Buckingham Palace have slammed the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle Sussex drama. But I can tell you King Charles is still open to a meeting with Archie and Lily, even though it looks like they may only fly into the country for 24 hours. So I've got to tell you something, right? Trust me when I tell you that Prince Harry is not a well man.
The palace used two words that tell you everything. Tiresome psychodrama. That is not a tabloid headline. That is not an anonymous online comment. According to royal correspondence briefed directly by Buckingham Palace Communications, specifically by the King's head of communications Tobin Andre, that is the official palace description of what Harry and Meghan have just put the royal family through. And the timeline that produced those two words is genuinely extraordinary. On Friday, Harry and Meghan's team released a detailed operational note to selected media outlets, confirming a complete 5-day UK visit schedule. Specific dates, specific locations, specific charities. Meghan's first UK public appearance in 6 years. 22 hours later, Harry wanted the entire thing pulled. There is nothing sacred in journalism except an operational note. Once you release one to the media and confirm the schedule, those outlets run the story as confirmed. That is what happened. Then the chaos started. And by Saturday, sources were describing Harry as crying in Portugal, his voice breaking during phone calls, in what multiple commentators described as a genuine breakdown. Welcome to the Marquee Report. This is the story of how a 5-day royal visit became what Buckingham Palace itself is now calling a PR disaster of the couple's own making. Let's start with what Buckingham Palace is actually briefing, because this is coming directly from the King's own team, and it is more pointed than anything the palace has said publicly about Harry in years. Rebecca English of the Daily Mail, who receives briefings directly from Buckingham Palace Communications, reported the palace's position in specific terms. Prince Harry now has a mountain to climb to fix his PR-owned goal as the security row overshadows the UK trip. No one knows who is coming. Palace accommodation offer remains not accepted, and patience is pushed to its limits by tiresome psychodrama. That briefing is significant on multiple levels. The palace is not being diplomatic. It is not issuing measured neutral statements about looking forward to any potential visit. It is using the phrase tiresome psychodrama to describe the behavior of the King's own son to a senior journalist at a major newspaper.
Even his holiday in Portugal is designed to go to a place where you can smoke the wacky backy legally. By the way, Harry, you can't do it in this country, so I'm quite surprised he wants to come back. But obviously, a toxic combination of psychedelic drugs too, because nothing else can explain the fact that he had managed to win over the mainstream media. I mean, trust me, in the independent media, we know what this guy is about, and we're never going to trust him again. But he had won over the mainstream media only to blow the whole thing up.
For the palace to brief that language means Charles's closest advisors have decided the cost of continued diplomatic silence is higher than the cost of letting the British public understand how the institution actually views this situation. English also reported that the palace's offer of accommodation at a royal residence had not even been formally accepted by the Sussex team, with only days remaining before the planned visit dates. The King offered Buckingham Palace as accommodation. Harry and Meghan did not have the basic courtesy to say yes or no. One palace source quoted directly was precise about what could have happened. For the sake of family harmony, the palace would have been perfectly happy with a peaceful and low-key visit. Yet once again, they have turned it into a soap opera. It's tiresome. Here is the specific claim Harry's team has been making publicly, and why it does not hold up under examination. Harry's statement released through People magazine said that the Independent Risk Management Board that Revec itself decided was necessary last November has still not taken place. It is therefore difficult to understand how the proportionality of the current arrangements can credibly be maintained without that independent assessment. That statement is doing something very specific. It is trying to create the impression that something new has happened, that a review was promised and withheld. that the current security situation represents a change from what was expected. But here is the documented reality. Harry's security arrangement has been exactly the same since Megxit in 2020. He was warned by Queen Elizabeth, by then Prince Charles, and by Prince William at the time, "You will lose automatic security if you go through with this." He had a year to think about it. He went through with it. Nothing has changed since. Royal commentators tracking this story noted something particularly revealing about the timeline. Harry's own operational note released on Friday had already conceded that standard security would not be available for this visit. He knew before he released the note. He released it anyway, and then 22 hours later, claimed to be blindsided by the situation he had already documented in his own press materials. Tom Sykes, who has covered this story extensively, put it plainly. Harry had known that he had not had automatic security for half a decade. The idea that the continuation of the status quo represented a bolt from the blue was and remains absolutely ridiculous. Here is the framing that multiple royal commentators independently applied to what happened over the weekend, and it is the most serious charge being made. The children were the lever. That is Tom Sykes's direct assessment. He reported that what Saturday was really about was an attempt to bounce King Charles, a cancer-stricken king, into intervening in the Ravik process to grant Harry the security coverage he has spent years demanding and being repeatedly denied. This is not the first time this specific pattern has been identified. During the Frogmore eviction dispute, Harry reportedly asked his father whether he wanted to see his grandchildren again. A friend of the king described that pattern to Sykes as emotional blackmail and beyond contempt. The king's response on this occasion, according to multiple sources, has been to make clear he will not intervene in the Ravik process. Whatever his personal feelings about seeing his grandchildren, and sources confirm he does want to see them, Charles has apparently drawn a line between personal desire and institutional integrity. Robert Jobson, arguably the journalist closest to King Charles's inner circle, admitted publicly that he had initially believed Harry was genuinely compromising on this visit. He was wrong. He said the crown is now more divided than ever, even more than after the Oprah interview. And he added that stress is the last thing a man living with serious cancer needs. Keeping the king steady should concern everyone more than the seating plan or the security detail. Here is the analysis being offered by royal commentators with direct knowledge of how the Sussex operation functions and why the specific timing of events over the weekend tells its own story. Tom Sykes argued that this entire exercise has the character of brand therapy dressed up as a family reunion. The royal connection is the asset. Without it, the glamour fades and the commercial appeal already weakened vanishes. Netflix has divested from Meghan's brand. Archwell Productions is a mere label. The celebrity friendships have collapsed. The children need to be positioned next to the king for commercial reasons, as much as personal ones. The clock is ticking on Charles's reign in a way that makes every missed photo opportunity a diminishing asset. And they will not get that photo opportunity with William, which means every missed visit with Charles represents an irreplaceable commercial loss for a brand that has very few remaining assets. Angela Levin, Harry's biographer who spent significant time with him, offered the most personal reading of the dynamic. She described Harry as someone who has become utterly overwhelmed and who will do anything to satisfy a partner who cannot be satisfied. She said the pattern she observes is of someone desperate to please and repeatedly discovering that pleasing is not possible because the next demand always follows the last one. Whether that reading is accurate, only Harry can say. What is visible publicly is the result. A 5-day visit announced with full operational detail collapsing within 22 hours into tears, phone calls, and contradictory statements across multiple media outlets. Here is the story that was running in parallel to all of this, and that made the Sussex chaos look even more stark by comparison. Catherine, Princess of Wales, quietly completed the Three Peaks Challenge. No press release beforehand, no operational note to selected media, no schedule published in advance. She simply climbed 3 mountains in 24 hours for charity, and the story emerged only when a team she encountered on the final summit posted about it themselves. During the challenge, she met an 11-year-old paraplegic boy competing in his own challenge. After completing her climb, she made a personal donation to his fundraising page. She signed it, Catherine Wales. She hid the exact amount. She wrote a personal note. She did not issue a statement about having done it. Someone in his team later posted about it. That is the only reason it became public. Compare that to an operational note released to media contacts on a Friday evening, listing every hospital visit, every charity appearance, every date and location for a 5-day schedule, followed 22 hours later by a breakdown and claims of a security crisis that had been documented in the original note. The contrast does not need analysis. It speaks for itself. Here is the picture as of now. Charles remains willing to meet his grandchildren, even if they fly in for just 24 hours. William is not involved and will not be. Camilla is not involved and will not be. The palace accommodation offer has not been formally accepted. The palace is briefing that patience has been pushed to its limits. Multiple senior royal journalists who previously gave Harry some benefit of the doubt have publicly said they were wrong to do so. Robert Jobson's conclusion, from someone who is as close to Charles's thinking as any journalist alive, is worth sitting with. It was a chance to build a bridge or two, a small one. This was the king's offer, and a kind one, and it asked only for compromise in return. The compromise never came. Whether Harry ultimately makes a brief visit with the children, or whether the entire trip collapses further, the institutional damage from the weekend is already done. The palace used the phrase, tiresome psychodrama. That language does not get unsaid. It entered the record of how Charles's own communications team describes his son's public behavior. And Charles, managing a serious cancer diagnosis, is dealing with this specific stress at the exact moment every person close to him says he needs the opposite. Here is where everything stands. A detailed visit was announced and fell apart within 22 hours. The palace is publicly expressing exhaustion through its communications team. The security dispute was documented as unresolvable in Harry's own press materials before he claimed to be blindsided by it. The children are being described by multiple sources as leverage rather than motivation. Charles remains open to a meeting, but has drawn a clear line about not intervening in security processes. The crown is described by those closest to it as more divided than at any point since the Oprah interview. And Catherine, Princess of Wales, quietly climbed 3 mountains, donated money to an 11-year-old boy's fundraiser under her own name, and let someone else tell the story. The contrast between those two stories, playing out simultaneously across the same news cycle, is the entire state of the British monarchy in 2026 in one weekend. This has been the Marquee Report. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. See you on the next one.